Hi, y'all. It's Brigitte with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is George Schnitzer. He is a publisher. He's with Premium Press America. I've known George for a really long time. We worked together in a lot of long projects over the years. George, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, George Schnitzer. I'm publisher for co-owner of Premium Press America with my dear wife. We've been in business about 35 years. Started off actually promoting books for authors and other publishers. And had, I must say in all modesty, our first effort was just a major success. And all of a sudden, we had what we considered a marketing company. We didn't care what the widget was. The first happened to be a book, and it was very successful. And all of a sudden, we were book promoters. People were sending us manuscripts from all over the country. And we did that for about 8 years.
And that was kind of all of a sudden, right? You kind of had over the years, you've had to tweak what you're offering. It's based on what people are wanting and what your clients are needing, right?
Yes. The first book we ever did was a diet book, and my friends and associates used to tease me saying, another diet book, how many diet books can you sell? And I said, you know what, they all sell. We're all trying to figure out how to lose weight. And we ended up doing 3 diet books in the world in a row, and they all ended up #1 New York Times bestsellers. And the spin-off books and calorie counters and fat gram counters and everything else also did equally well. And then a gentleman by the name of Art Linkletter came along, and we did a book for him called Old Age is Not for Sissies. And one of the things that distinguished us back then is when we did book marketing, we never had any budgets to put together marketing programs. So we created avenues that we could license, and the licensing fees would generate profits as well as cover expenses. So, for example, with the diet books, we went into grocery stores and set up weight loss centers and distributed information and sold books at these centers. We did, first one with Kroger's, and then eventually we did it with 40-something grocery store chains across America. And then we did another one co-sponsored with Family Circle magazine in 5 issues in a row. And that was equally successful. Those authors went on to sell over 20 different titles in various aspects of dieting and weight loss, and how to diet for diabetes or cancer or heart healthy and so on and so forth. But their visibility allowed them to do that. And then with Art Linkletters, we took our successful model thinking we were going to go back into pharmacies. And so we had gained the reputation of generating customer flow in grocery stores. So we just thought pharmacies would be great. And Art Linkletter, he was known to all the seniors. So we flew to Chicago to present our idea. And we were, first things out of their mouth was, "Welcome, George. I hope you have another plan for us." And I said, "I do." And this is a way to get, because in those days they had, had pharmacies linked to grocery stores.
Right.
So we said, yeah, we have a way to get more seniors in your pharmacies. And they closed our presentation booklets and courteously slid them back to me and said, "We're not interested. Last thing we want in our store is another senior with his insurance papers and his discount cards. And
God.
he says, go home and work on a promotion that'll bring us a young girl buying cosmetics and feminine products and birth control and things that they're going to buy every month. And we said, okay, and we revamped the link letter project and went into malls and found multiple malls, because there was things, what do you do with your house when after you retire, and what special banking needs do you need? And we found all of these potential sponsors within malls and put it on in about 20 malls, and it was a great success.
Well,
Plus the charm of Mr. Linkletter.
Right. Well, you've been involved in so many things now. Like you said, Premium Press has been around for 35 years, right? And
Yep.
you are based in the Nashville area. And
yes.
And a lot has changed just in general since we've known each other in the industry. And it's constant adapting. That's how I see it, right? And constant technology change as well. So how do you see this affecting publishing now? And I'm just curious because you've been involved with it, you've adapted yourself quite a bit. You definitely have a lot of resilience because you're still with it. You're still in the game, right? And so how do you see it, based on your experience and stuff, how do you see the future going to be?
Well, it's very different. I can tell you that, for example, the first project we ever did was the rotation diet, where we had the grocery store chain sponsors, and we got media sponsors and so on and so forth. And here in Nashville or in Middle Tennessee, we had 23 participating stores, the city newspapers, the weekly newspapers, the YMCA, the radio stations, all were in partner, and and television. The support was unbelievable. We couldn't do that today,
right?
Because now the radio stations, for the most part, are syndicated shows. So there's no way to host your author to talk about your project. The television stations, they're hurting for money so bad. Most of their stuff is paid. They don't have the noon shows and the other kinds of talk shows that they allowed for in the past. And newspapers we had at the time the Nashville Banner and the Nashville Tennessean, both of which had book review sections and living sections. And the rotation diet, we had Tennessean. They covered it on the food page. They covered it on the lifestyles page. Restaurant associations had meals, within the restaurants. They were always promoting themselves. And then we just had news features, what was going on every week. Right now, they don't even have a living section. They don't have a book review section anymore.
Well, they do
have
in Atlanta.
Well,
they do. Yeah, maybe
yeah.
Who knows how long it's going to last, but I think that's why podcasting, like what I'm doing, is
it's essential. Social media is the way to go. What we are currently doing, and we're doing up until everything stopped with COVID, we try to find books that have a connection, a nationwide connection. For example, we released a book called Quotes from the Summitt, and they were about the iconic UT women's basketball coach, Pat Summitt. And we had unreleased photographs and quotes about her, and it was kicking off on ESPN, and which was going to be a heck of a lot in March Madness. But guess what? That was canceled. And
right. But it did come out last year, 2019, right? Then
it came out in 2000, but there were some issues that had nothing to do with the book, and It was part of a program called the Pat Summitt Leadership Group. And just as we were about to kick off on ESPN last year, the company that was created out of the blue was purchased by Southwestern Publishing.
Oh, okay, right.
And while all those negotiations and everything were going on, everything was put on hold. So we were trying to pick up where we left off a year later. And then COVID put us on hold again. But
Right.
as of last week, everybody's still excited about the book. And for all intents and purposes, it's brand new. And we're excited because she has such a following within the basketball community for sure, but also the corporate community. She was a kind of a pioneer for women's rights and leadership development and self-esteem issues 25 years ago, and did a lot of corporate speaking and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of potential sponsors out there she's done work for in the past. So and a lot of the pro players are supporting it.
She was a great role model. I just remember, like, wow, she's a female, coach at a big university. That's what I remember growing up in the South. She
was so intense on the college level, and she started at UT when she was 22.
Wow.
And they said, here's your locker room, and you better take this pail and mop because you're the new head coach, but you also have to clean the locker room, and by the way, you're going to wash the uniforms.
Oh, my Lord.
And she went from there to the only woman in history that played and coached an Olympic team, basketball team.
I forgot
8 national championships, won virtually every award there is to win in basketball, or received it, and was a Freedom Medal winner, award recipient. So she's done it all. It's just squeaky clean and nice as could be, and wrote prolifically. Kept notes on everything. So to put together the book was really quite an adventure. We were given 50,000 photographs by the University of Tennessee to wade through.
Wow.
And she kept journals and cards. So she kept a pack of cards with her. And at the end of every practice, she would say, she'd pull out the Candace Parker card and said, today, Candace, dribble was great, or long shot needs a little help, or whatever. And she would make notes on every player, on every team that she ever coached, going back to AAU and so on. And she kept all of those cards in files in her basement.
Wow.
It's amazing what she did.
Well, I think it's amazing that you got involved in this project to begin with, because you were recommended, correct, by the chancellor.
Yes.
That to me shows you that you've got a good, reputation in the state of Tennessee, which helps to get new projects.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned? Well, before I finish that question, during the beginning of COVID, you said that, we couldn't do a whole lot of stuff with this book, but at the same time, didn't you have like some damage to your house? I mean, like, some crazy stuff happened from some
oh yeah,
tornado.
Yeah, we had
bizarre
80-mile-an-hour wind shear in the 1st of May. We live in a very wooded neighborhood, and according to our neighbors, we got the gold medal for most damage on the street. We lost 7 very large trees.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
I mean, 5 were over 100 feet tall.
Oh my God.
Our deck was built around one. But our deck did get repaired last week, finally. They brought in a crane to lift it off an elm tree, about 100-year-old elm tree. And but the crane was so big, we had a 40-foot, 1-foot deep gouge in our driveway. That was repaired Friday, and they got to come up and come back and do some other things. But we didn't have a phone for 2 weeks, and they finally got electric on after about a week. But then the phone company would come in and hang wires, and the electric company would come back and snip those out to put theirs up, and that went on for about another week before the neighbors just went out and said, "Stop it! Just get the dang things going." And but we've had problems since then, because so many, our neighbor across the street had the same kind of damage in between our trees and his trees. We took down a couple telephone poles and transformers, and yeah, it was interesting, to say the least.
I remember hearing about that, and when you eventually had phone service, we to catch up. But you're unfortunately you didn't have electricity, but your house wasn't damaged, just a deck, right? So that
you're right. Some very superficial, gutter damage, but that was it.
It's still amazing that you have survived. I mean, that's freaky, and you're, like you said, very lucky that it was superficial. If you think about it, and all this stuff was going on, right, with COVID. None of us really knew at the time what was going to be happening to us, and then you get slapped in the face.
Exactly.
I have to laugh about it now. I mean, I know it's not funny, but it's just absurd. And I think that's what life is sometimes, absurd. And again, I've known you for a long time. You've had to deal with a lot of interesting things, and the Pat Summitt thing is a really fantastic opportunity. And is there a way, you mentioned that you could possibly, I think you mentioned to customize these kind of things in the past? I wasn't sure if that's something could be applied.
Yes, and I was going to say, we were also we've had the best year we've had in a long time. But one of the reasons for that is we did a fire safety book called "I Can't Save You, But I'll Die Trying," and it's the author's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bert Clark, who I pre-publishing was in the fire service, and was an adjunct faculty at the National Fire Academy, and knew Bert from there. He actually invited me, but I knew him before then. Also, we kind of grew up together in the same neighborhood. But I was nagging him for years to do a book for me, and finally, and I say years, I mean like 20 years. And one day I get a phone call. He said, "I'm retired. I'm ready to do the book." So he is a well-published author. He had over 200 articles over the years. So we selected 44 of the best there. And the kind of the central theme of the book is firefighters get a lot of acclaim. And it's well-deserved, but firefighters kind of get addicted to that too. It's kind of like believing your own news release, and so when the fire happens, they really want to get in there, and they want to try to save somebody and get the fire out, and all the things that you think of that they're supposed to be doing. But if you look at the reality of fires, especially home fires, about 90% of the people have already died before the alarm even goes off.
Oh.
So you have firefighters jumping on fire trucks, speeding to get to the fire. They don't put their seatbelts on. They don't get the proper equipment. They don't check things. And they get to a fire scene and they go running in burning buildings. And we've had this book is dedicated to a captain who ran in a building, fell through a floor, and died. with one of her. It happened to be a woman captain with one of the other firefighters, and they were so much in a hurry to get to the fire, they didn't do the safety check, which was go around the house and see what's going on in the back, because all they saw was smoke coming out the front door. Well, the whole back was burned out of this house and into the basement. So they walked on a floor that couldn't hold the weight of a hamster, and went through and died.
That is so
And
sad.
over 100 firefighters die every year falling off fire trucks on the way to the fire.
Right.
There's
Yep.
just so many issues like that. So this book is trying to target the fire culture,
Right.
and trying to get them to change how they think about fires and saving themselves and society thinking about fires.
What is the name of
So-
the book again?
I can't save you, but I'll die trying.
Gotcha.
It's the American fire culture, and what we do is, of course, we make it available. It's on Amazon and all of those kinds of things. But a lot of fire colleges will buy it, or state fire chiefs associations, or state training officers associations, and they'll do it for special conferences. So we take their logo and put it on the cover, and then sometimes they get sponsors to buy the books for them. We'll
Right.
name the sponsors inside, or put a letter from the executive director of the organization or the mayor of the town or whatever. So we can customize the books for them, and that's been a real big selling point.
That's good.
So we're, and I'm pleased to say one group bought enough to donate a copy to every member of Congress.
Wow, I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yep. And the reason for that is some of the laws regarding fire issues in this country are just absurd. One is that firefighters are exempt from wearing seatbelts, because the thinking is it takes 2 seconds to put a seatbelt on, and when you're in a rush, it slows down your response time. Now, a couple people die here and there, but
Right, but they're
at
losing
least
their
you got to the
lives.
fires 2 seconds faster. The other one that I think is absolutely absurd, there are 33 states in this country that have laws that prohibit cities from requiring sprinklers in new construction.
What?
Well, the developers don't like to spend the extra money to put the sprinklers in.
I did not. Oh, George, this is very informational. This is terrible.
And it's terrible.
Yes.
And people are dying as a result. And the interesting thing about it is most of these states' insurance companies give you a break on your insurance, significant break, if you have
Right.
the sprinklers. And the cost of putting a sprinkler in new construction is negligible. The sprinkler heads are very inexpensive, and they try to make it through false information, I might add, that if you have a fire and they go out, it ruins everything in the house. The truth of the matter is technology's caught up. If you have a fire and cigarettes left on a couch, the sprinkler close to that will go off, and as soon as it knows through temperature that the fire's out, it stops, and none of the other sprinklers will go on. So,
wow. Right. I'm learning a lot just talking about it. I know you're very passionate about the firefighters. I did not know the in-depth of the issue here.
Well, Bert likes to tell a story about a guy in Connecticut, very, very wealthy family, that had a $35 million home filled with $50 million worth of art. And they brought him in to look at the plans and everything. And he said, "Where's your sprinklers?" And he said, no, we can't put sprinklers in there. Water is not good for all these paintings. And he said, yeah, but paintings can be repaired. Ash can't.
That's true.
And a year later, after the house burned to the ground and he lost $50 million worth of paintings, he called them back and he said, we're going to build this house better this time. And he said, sprinklers? And he said, no, water can hurt paintings.
What?
And rebuilt the house and started building art again.
Wow. People
have notions about fire. And the other one is I'll hold my breath and run in.
Right.
You know how many times a minute you breathe?
Right. I used to imagine.
5.
Right.
Breathe 5. And if you breathe in toxic gases, which every fire produces, the first one makes you dizzy. The second one might make you pass out, but certainly makes you dysfunctional. And usually the third or fourth one you pass out, the fifth one you're dead.
My question, what made you so passionate about this? Did you want to be a firefighter when you were younger?
No, I never did. And the whole idea of running into a burning building, I always found very distasteful.
Right.
But at one point, I was the state director of public relations and fire safety education for the Tennessee Department of Insurance.
Okay.
And we had 5 offices across the state, and I was going to the Knoxville office just to introduce myself and say hello, meet and greet kind of thing. And while I was there, I got a call that said, we're going to introduce you to some of the fire problem, and gave me an address, and it turned out it was right outside the college I graduated from. And I was familiar with the area, but I went and pulled into this very rural area, and I could see trucks and that sort of thing and smell the burned flesh, and came up to a brick block house that was painted lime green. It was a small house, about 1,400 square feet. And turned out it was 2 bedrooms and an attic, and a couple lived there with their two boys. They slept in one bedroom, and the boys in the other, separated by a bathroom and a little central hallway. But the mom's sister was living there too. She was separated, and she had 2 boys. So they they cut the ceiling out of out of a closet into the attic, and put stairs there so they could get up. But all they had up there was low ceilings. They'd put mattresses, and that's where they slept.
Oh.
But they wanted to celebrate Christmas early, so Thanksgiving weekend they bought a Christmas tree and set it up in front of the 220 space heater in the wall. And sometime during the night, thermostat kicked on, tree caught on fire and fell in the doorway. And the block house had those old steel crank windows, that only open a couple inches.
Wow.
And the father had gotten one of the boys out of his room, and the mom, for whatever reason, decided to get under the bed, and they collapsed the bed on top of her, the mattress and everything, and he pounded on his windows. And he actually was able to bend them out and break all the glass, but he pounded so much he had no flesh left on his arms.
Oh.
And was found in the corner of the room cuddling his son, protecting him from the fire. And when I was there, they were removing the bodies, and you could see the silhouette of this young boy's eyelashes and everything against the white wall and the black and garb from the smoke. And I just looked at it, and I was just thinking, I mean, how scared they must have been, how much pain they were in.
Right, the pain.
And the chief walked me around the outside. He said, "If you think that's bad," and we got to the window on the outside, and you know what lapping is? That's on the top of a window. You see the black smoke makes a mark on the walls,
Right.
outside walls.
Right.
Well, on this lime green, you had that dark smoke on the outside, on the top of the window, and on the bottom, almost in the same design, was this man's blood dripping from the windowsill to the ground. And I just said, "How did this happen?" And he said, "Nobody told him. And don't put a Christmas tree in front of a 228er, even if it's cool."
Right.
I mean, so I canceled my meeting. I got in my car and I drove home. And by the time I got back home, I penciled out a public service campaign on Christmas tree safety and checked with officials. And I had worked in the media for many years. And by December 1, we had on air, sponsored by the Radio Broadcasters Association, and television and newspapers, we had ads running, or public service announcements running. And for the first time in years, we had no fire deaths in December from Christmas trees.
Well, that's good. You made an impact. Yeah, good.
It was significant, and you know, we were just doing what we thought was right. And the next thing we know, we got the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, has given us an award, and the governor calls and says, "I want George to keep on doing what he's doing."
Right, that's good.
So we started working with insurance companies, funding programs, and we did make a difference. We made a huge difference in the number of lives saved, and property loss damages were way down, and then got involved at the National Fire Academy teaching, and it's amazing. It's a very, very close-knit group of people, and it was some of my best career stuff. We were also asked to write the Firemanship's Merit Badge for the Boy Scouts of America.
Really? Right.
So
that's important to
yeah. So anyway, that's kind of way off publishing, but that's what we did.
Well, that's a great, segue into like how you got your reputation, obviously, and started Premium Press and turned into a marketing company, then a publisher. And a lot of people during this downtime want to write and publish books. Is there any advice you can give to somebody who's new to this? You know what I'm saying? Do you have any?
Patience. Have lots of patience.
Right. We're both in it, but I'm in it more of the production aspect, but you're the actual publisher. So.
Well, one of the things that we have not been selling books. In fact, Friday we got our first order in 3 months.
Wow.
And today we got another one from a different distributor.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, we literally, Amazon bought a few copies of some different titles or shipped, but outside of that, we have done zero business. And
I think it's because people are afraid, right? Is that what it is?
Starting to pick up. I say zero business in terms of selling books. What we have done is packaged some books for people.
Gotcha.
And these are people that are using them. They're speakers. They're quality books, but one's a Civil War reenactor, and he's well known within that genre, and so he has a book, and he can sell to those things, and he can sell electronically and through emails and snail mail to people he knows, even though the events are being canceled.
Right. That's
yeah. So we're doing that kind of thing. We're starting, or have just started, a children's color book targeting very young children, and it's called First Supper, and it's an interactive book, and it's a non-denominational story about Joseph and Mary going to the inn and what meal they were served, and it has recipes and what foods you could buy and how you can prepare them. So
That's cool.
You get up close and personal look at what that could have been like, to the best of our knowledge.
Right,
So,
exactly. It's I think it's helpful to start with kids, help them be more creative and to think.
Yep,
what happened.
exactly.
And especially with a lot of stay-at-home stuff going on, they need activity. And I think that, like you said, an interactive book will be helpful.
Yep. And we were contacted about a year ago from a woman who is a knitter and quite accomplished, and she just wanted to know about if she could get published and control the sale of her book, and how that would happen and that sort of thing. And she said, well, I'll be back in touch. And well, she called over the weekend and said, I'm ready. And she knits, but she knits the most extraordinary things. Raggedy Ann and Andes and teddy bears and different gloves and slippers, but they all are most of them are for kids and things, and just the most beautiful and fun things. But she also gives, first thing is buy this needle,
right.
buy this, and step by step by every stitch to go through it, and it's kind of a series of how-tos, and so
That's cool.
She wants us to put that book together, and she also has a children's book that's going with it. So things kind of just come up,
Right, and I think people have more time to think of something creative. So if someone wants to reach out to you, how do they find you? I know your company is Premium Press America. How do they reach out to you, George?
Just the best way would be George at premiumpressamerica.com.
That's perfect.
We answer everything.
And what I'll do is, and everyone knows, at the summary of this podcast discussion, I'll have that email address in there as well. So then people, hopefully we're inspiring them. You have a great background, great story, and hopefully we're inspiring them if they want to do a book to reach out to George, right?
That'd be great. And if some people just need advice, we give free advice.
I love that. Free advice. You're right, about publishing. That is so critical. People are so interested in it now, and they're so want to make sure, you've got a lot of experience. So it'd be really helpful.
The last thing I would remind people, don't bring us books already printed.
Right, exactly. That's a good point too.
It happens, and inevitably, you'll go, well, where's your ISBN? What's that? And it's just, we've had too many disasters like that. It was just terrible. That's the waste that can happen if you don't have the right advice.
And that's why they go to someone like you for your expert advice, and they come to me to help with the production.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate your time, George, and it's so nice to talk to you again.
Well, thank you for asking.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
It's been fun.
All right.
All righty. Bye-bye.